great panel discussion today. I am so happy to have these three impressive businesswomen. Let's see. What we're going to talk about is the business case for on-demand manufacturing. And Rachel, Nicole, and Annika represent three companies that I think are on the forefront of what this industry is offering. So let me tell you just a second about me. I'm an editor at All3DP, the world's largest, most popular online 3D printing magazine. We have an additive manufacturing section that we started about 2 or so years ago. Covered the industry, and I manage that section. Let me go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we can just jump on in. What we're going to do is, let me just go over what we're going to do. We're going to talk about, I'm going to give you a brief overview of the market, and then each of our panelists will talk a little bit about themselves and their company, and then we have a discussion. And then we'd love to take your questions, but let's just go and start off with the introductions from panelists. So wonder, Nicole, Chowdhury, if you can tell us about yourself and a little bit about Fathom.
Good morning, all. My name is Nicole Chowdhury. I've been in industry for 15 years. I've spent my career chasing the best technology. You know, I'm fascinated with 3D printing and, you know, the scope that you can create and the future of the industry. So I really have just spent my time pursuing the best technologies and learning all I can about them. I've joined Fathom mid last year, and so we're a global company, and so we have 13 sites, 12 here in the US and 1 overseas. And I don't know, what else would you like to know about Fathom and myself?
Well, Fathom is one of the growing companies in this industry. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes Fathom unique?
I think what makes us unique is the scope of the technologies that we offer. And so when a customer comes to us, not only can we offer 3D printing services, we have fabrication. So you get welding, you get sheet metal and CNC, and then also injection molding. So being able to take your idea with our design team and then pull that idea through production, mass production, is a wonderful scope of work for a company to provide.
Great. Let's go over to Annika Meissner at craftcloud. I do want to disclose All3DP owns craftcloud, but the All3DP magazine is editorially independent. Annika, tell us about craftcloud's business model, which is different than Proto Labs and Fathom.
Yes, a little bit. Well, thanks for everyone who's joining at the moment. A little bit about me. My name is Annika. I joined craftcloud 3 years ago, and I am the head of operations at craftcloud, and I'm doing this position or this job for about roughly 2 years. craftcloud might be a little bit different in the sense of that it is more of a marketplace of different 3D printing services that are covering the globe, basically. We have partners all over the world, and we are connecting our customers with these partners all over the world, connecting them with their offers, with their technologies and their materials. Currently, we mostly focus on 3D printing, so that makes us a little bit different again to what Nicole just mentioned. We do also have some capacities for CNC milling, but our most big focus is on 3D printing at the moment. As Carolyn already said, we are part of All3DP, but we are also very detached as we are set up in different locations in the same city, but different levels, and we work completely independently. But we do have a lot of know-how in the company. So as we are mainly a third party that connects customers with printing partners, we are also a knowledgeable, neutral third party in the middle that brings a lot of benefits I can also explain more later about. Thank you very much, Caroline.
Great. Thanks, Annika. Rachel, tell us about Proto Labs.
Well, thank you for inviting me to this panel, Carolyn. And it's nice to see everyone virtually.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So Proto Labs, well, I'll tell you a little bit about me. I I'm Rachel. I joined Proto Labs 3 years ago as the marketing manager for 3D printing. But prior to that, I had a career in medical device engineering, and I spent about 10 years designing and developing products, mostly for surgical instruments. And that is where I sort of fell in love with what 3D printing can do, you know, for the medical community, for the broader industries. And I was using Proto Labs as a customer of theirs to 3D print some metal parts, mostly prototypes that I would get to go and take to surgeons so they could, you know, evaluate and give me feedback on the designs. So that was really fun because I could make quick customized parts, iterate quickly, all the benefits of additive that we all know and love. So when the position opened up at Proto Labs, I thought, oh, this would be great. I can, you know, use my knowledge in medical, but at Proto Labs, we also work with engineers from many different industries. We see it all, and all different types of parts and needs, and just each industry is kind of growing at a different. Each industry is growing in additive, but each one seems to be growing at a little bit different pace. Some may be ahead of others, like aerospace, maybe jumping the gun a little bit. So that's just been the coolest part of working at Proto Labs. We like Fathom, like Nicole, and a little bit different from craftcloud, we serve customers with on-demand parts. Similar to Fathom, we offer a myriad of services. I think all the ones you named, Nicole, we have as well. But within 3D printing, we have 6 different technologies. The ones you're probably very familiar with: stereolithography, multi-jet fusion, metal 3D printing, selective laser sintering, polyjet, you name it. We've got some carbon as well, DLS technology. So we're really, we try to stay, or we are kind of, machine agnostic, if you will. So we bring in machines and materials based on the demand that we're hearing that our customers need. So we really try to do a good job of evaluating different technologies and making sure we offer what the various industries are needing. Since we tend to work with everyone from across all industries. But that's a little bit on Proto Labs. Did I miss anything, Carolyn? Or you think that's good?
No, well, we have opportunities to talk a little bit more in depth when we get to the questions, especially. Nadia has my presentation. I think we can throw that up. All right. Well, we have kind of gone over this stuff. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, I wanted to plug All3DP Pro just for a second. You can find us on all the social media channels as well as at all3dp.com/pro. This is the professional and industrial section of All3DP, which also covers more of the hobbyist and home market. We have a monthly newsletter you can sign up for, and you can contact any of the editors through any of the social media channels. So we can go on from there. Next slide. This is just the tip of the iceberg with the on-demand digital manufacturers. We have Proto Labs, Fathom, craftcloud. It's such a dynamic space, and it is growing rapidly. Off to the side a little bit, we have the marketplaces like craftcloud, Xometry, Protic, Factive. These are some of the services that help you try to navigate this growing industry. Who should I work with? Who offers what material? What services do they offer? Hopefully, in this presentation, you can get a little bit more of a sense of which of these companies might be best for your application. Next slide. All right, a little bit about the market. It's one of those things where I updated this slide after I sent it. But basically, what I wanted to say is, why are these companies growing? Why is this becoming such a, it's certainly not a crowded market, but why are there so many of these companies out here? And you've probably already heard about supply chain disruption. But the story is bigger than that. There's a lot more to it. It's not just that companies are turning to additive manufacturing or rapid manufacturing to solve their immediate supply chain problems because of tariffs or some of the disruption we see in markets in China. It's a whole industry that is changing because of maturing technology. There is the CAD software that is easier to use and more affordable. There's design optimization that is now more accessible. The machines themselves, there's more to pick from, and they are more accessible. So it's easier for companies like Fathom and others to set up shop. And then there's really strong investment in this sector. Fathom, Xometry, Materialize, and Shapeways all went public in 2021. Fast Radius is going to go public, I think, next week. So there's a lot of backing and excitement in this growing market. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay. You might not be familiar with all of the features that on-demand 3D printing and additive manufacturing can offer you. Rachel went over a few, so did Nicole. But there's a lot more than just getting your parts printed. What some of the larger companies are offering is sort of not, I wouldn't say training, but definitely consulting and services that can help you pick the right technology, the right material. And that manufacturing method that they recommend might not even be 3D printing if they have other technologies available like injection molding. They can walk you through redesigning your part to take advantage of the principles and the part production that additive manufacturing offers. You can get white label production for more than just prototypes. Virtual part warehousing is something that a lot of them are offering. Post-processing, it could be a lot of things that even if you have 3D printing at your company, you may want to outsource for the materials you don't have, or the technologies that you might not be able to have in-house, or even the expertise. And so that is another big reason why a lot of these companies are growing dramatically. Next slide. So whichever company you decide, there's a few tips that we have at All3DP, and our panelists will go into more depth about how you choose from a lot of these companies. First, you may have never printed a 3D part before, so they will help you decide, is your current design even printable? What do you need to change in your design? How might you augment your design to be printed in metal? How can you really get the most of what additive manufacturing offers? Some of them will make a prototype of your part first before they'll go into production. You want to make sure you ask about that. You want to ask, what sort of printers does this company have? If you're familiar with them, what sort of technologies do they have? Do they just offer a couple of technologies? Would they offer different technologies that maybe you haven't heard of? A lot of these companies can certify parts. If you work in a regulated industry, you need certifications for your parts. That is also a feature of a lot of these companies. Because of the growing competition, we've seen a lot of these companies specialize. Some specialize in metal 3D printing. Some specialize in medical 3D printing. Some specialize in very large parts. Some in just very economical, rapid parts. We've seen specialization in industry. A lot of companies might specialize just in automotive. They might specialize in just aerospace. So you can find a company, look for someone who might have a lot of experience in your industry. Quality assurance. A lot of companies offer different ways of testing and certifying their parts, making sure that they are of the quality that you're looking for. You also want to consider your intellectual property. What safeguards do they have in place about keeping your files safe if it's a prototype? And then you want to see how scalable this company might be. They might be great for prototypes, but once you go into the production, can they also handle the production, whether it's in a polymer or in metal? Next slide. Is that the end of my slides? Might be the end. Okay. Well, that was the quick view of the market, the $6.8 billion additive manufacturing services market. We already heard from each of them a little bit about their companies, so I wanted to dive into the questions and talk about and let our audience know what you're seeing out there. I talked a little bit about how someone might be able to choose, and I'd really love to get your opinions on what did I leave off? What else sets you apart, and how else can people choose the right company for the parts that they want to manufacture? Let me start with you, Nicole.
I think that as people are looking at their geometry, right, and they're looking at the quantities and they're looking at the needs that they have, I think that really drives people to picking the best provider out there on the marketplace. And so sometimes you're restricted. You were talking about medical, and sometimes you're restricted by material. And there are so many, there's only a few people that offer material, or the material that you want to do production in is limited to that actual manufacturer. And so I think spending time understanding the scope, if you're just looking for a fast prototype and you only need one and it's simple. And I really liked how in your presentation you talked about consulting and needing someone to hold your hand. And, you look online, we do have a smart quotes tool. And so you can go online, you can instantly upload your files, you can get a price, and you can buy online. And so there's a wide market for people that just want to have on-demand parts. And then there's also a wide market of people that need to have that special assistance, and that's a consulting. I mean, you have somebody on the telephone talking with them that understands where they are right now with their prototype, the materials that they want to do production in, and then how to then best assist them in getting the iterations through prototyping and then moving into injection molding. And so I think that understanding where your part is, where your production's going to be, that's how you really pick the best provider.
Great. Rachel, you have anything to add about that?
Yeah, I thought that was a great slide. I'd love to take that slide too. I was gonna, the thing that comes to mind is just, we're all people. It's that element of work with someone you trust, build the relationship with the service provider, the people. Just you want to be working with someone who's going to set really clear expectations for you and help you understand. I think you actually brought this up in your slide. Like, if additive is not right for this part, let's call it off and figure out a solution for you. So that trust element has definitely got to be there. And the other thing I was thinking about was in terms of supply chain and kind of minimizing the number of partners or vendors that you work with. It's nice to have a on-demand service provider that performs secondary operations. So if you have an additive part, for example, and you might need some custom finishing work on it, or you might need some post machining, or a heat treatment applied to the part. I'm just naming off things I know Proto Labs can do, but I know that there are service providers with extended capabilities, and that kind of helps keep your part under one roof, and provides a lot of efficiency for you when you can work with a service provider who can do it all.
Great, great. So, Annika, craftcloud as a marketplace of service providers has an audience that is also not quite sure which provider to go with. How do you help them select?
Exactly. I want to also mention that the points that my both colleagues here on the panel made are very valid, especially Rachel, talking about custom treatments or custom needs that customers have. These are very special. So I think, especially for the people that we cater to at craftcloud, because as I mentioned earlier already, we are a global network. We cover the entire world, so to say, for customers and for manufacturers that are catering to these customers. That means that we are also covering a lot of technologies, the very basic technologies like FDM or SLA that are cheaper to get, that are very common amongst those 3D printing services. And there are also more advanced technologies, metal 3D printing, MJF, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of options on our website as well, on our service. And as a customer, you first need to know what it is that you're looking for. You can start by thinking, okay, what is most important for me? Let's say price, speed, quality. Ideally, all three of these things are perfect, but maybe sometimes you have a very special need for speed or a very special need for a certain surface quality. The important thing is that you communicate these needs. As Rachel mentioned earlier, with custom colors or heat treatments, we have manufacturers on our service as well that can help you out with these things, and manufacturers that might not be able to help you out with certain very special needs. But then therefore they can offer a cheaper price because they stick to more standard settings. So if you have any specific needs, it's always important to communicate them, make a note, write an email, anything, because in the end, these are custom-made projects. This is not a shoe that has already been produced 1,000 times and it's the same for everyone, but it's your specific project. You might be emotionally involved with it because you spend a lot of time on it. So if there's any special needs, I would definitely recommend to communicate that. Also, if you do your research about it because you want to know what's happening to your part or what's happening to your project, check the technology first, and then maybe then the material. If you want to know if your part is printable or not, of course you can get help about that from us as well. But if you want to do the work beforehand, these are things that I would recommend to any customer. Even if you already know your way around in 3D printing, it can happen that a 3D printable design turns out one way with one technology and another way with another technology. That makes sense when you see it, but sometimes people might not think about it in the first place. So in that sense, I would say platforms like craftcloud can be very helpful to save you valuable time and money in this process, as they compare different services. Some of them might offer the same material, the same color, but someone might be faster, someone might be cheaper. So with all of these thoughts that you have in mind that are specific to your project, to your timeline, services like craftcloud can very much help you with the global network, definitely.
Great. Thanks, Annika. I think what everybody mentioned was a relationship and communication, making sure you either know what you want or that you trust your provider. I wonder, the next question is, the 3D printing customer, how have they changed over the years? Are they more knowledgeable? Is there a wide spectrum of people who know exactly what they want, and then people who might upload a file that it is not at all printable? And how do you overcome maybe that knowledge gap? Rachel, let's start with you.
This is a great question. I have a good story here. We, at Proto Labs, I think I mentioned earlier, we see it all. So we have definitely seen those back of the napkin ideas where a customer is absolutely sure they know what they want, but they just don't have the concept of exactly what the benefits of additive are. Sometimes what they're asking for, they have no idea how much it's going to cost. So one fun one that happened recently, I think there was a customer who wanted a customized. So he was on the right track for additive, but a customized battle sword for a project he was doing. But the thing was, he didn't have any CAD. He just had the 2D prints, and sure, you can start start there with the 2D prints and build out your CAD model, but he just wasn't at CAD model yet. The part wasn't the design he had in mind wasn't a great fit for additive. So it's just telling you how we see people from, all, what's the right word for this? Just all levels of understanding of additive. So counter to that, we had another customer who I can name because we were able to show some of it on YouTube, the Hacksmith Industries. I don't know how widespread it is in Europe, but in the US, it's just a fun channel where he recreates parts from famous movies like Avengers, and he was able to additively, recreate some parts that were used in movie scenes. And the thing with working with him, he brought the CAD, he knew what he wanted, he knew how the post-processing worked. So in summary, I think we're still seeing it all at the service bureau on-demand manufacturer level, but I've definitely, in talking with my colleagues, there has been a shift, and I think the shift towards people better understanding the rules of additive design, I think a lot of that is driven by exposure to additive at an earlier age, coming out of universities with at least some hands-on FDM experience, people bringing printers into their homes. I think that, that's really driven things, and also the advancement of the software to just help designers and engineers kind of think through designing for the process has really helped advance the learning curve for everyone. So I see it just continuing to be on a good trajectory.
Great. Nicole, who is the typical Fathom customer?
I thought it was really interesting listening to Rachel and her two examples, because I think that, that's pretty consistent for everyone. And what I have to say is that I think in the marketplace that it's material development. And a lot of times, they do have that hands-on experience at the university. They have some exposure to 3D printing, but then at the end, they don't understand all the different materials that are available or all the different processes. And so as you meet people and you talk with people and you're helping them with their projects, it's about education, and I think that I've spent a great deal of my career sitting down and educating people about the newest materials and the newest processes on the market, and how then their parts or their project best fit into those processes. I'd say that with all the 3D printing capabilities, each machine has its own unique applications. And so there can be some crossover, but some of them have thermoplastic materials, some of them are thermal set materials. And so the consumers coming in, they know that they have a function for their part, whether it's something to look at, whether it's something that is going to be an engineering review, or something that they want to actually 3D print and put into production. And understanding the materials is where that consulting comes in, and that added benefit of having a live person to talk to, and then the post processes that each one of those 3D printing materials can go through then adds that benefit in the end. And I thought it was really interesting as well that Rachel was talking about software, and I think that the engineers we see, there's that time. So yes, SolidWorks, CATIA, all of these companies do have software to help you optimize for additive, but then it's where is that education happening? I know with COVID and all the just flux in manufacturing with the supply chain demands, that people don't have that added time. And so to learn new things beyond, what they're currently doing, and then helping their coworkers out. So really depending on us to as a service provider to kind of direct them and, provide pointers. And I think that's something that a lot of on-demand parts, you don't see that there's a suggestion of, oh, you need to change your design like this to make it more printable in SLS, because SLS doesn't have support. So if you wanted to go into FDM or SLA, you have to think about support removal and accessibility. And so I think that that's, the conversation. And so when I think about the customers that we have at Fathom, they are educated customers. People are interested. They want to make a part. And so if they're prototyping to iterate, to step into production, or if they're prototyping to continue on with additive manufacturing, that is what the customer base that we're seeing, that they have this desire to use the services to have an end goal, which is the production.
Great. Thanks, Nicole. So, Annika, who is the craftcloud customer? Has it shifted or changed over the years?
There is definitely a broad range amongst our craftcloud customers, what also my colleagues here have said. I can also just agree that the accessibility of our services, yours and craftcloud, the accessibility of software out there that became a lot easier to work with, has educated people. I think all three of us at least have spent a lot of time educating people out there as well about what is possible and what not. I do have a few memories of my early customers that I worked with about 3 years ago. There was a customer who wanted a custom-made beer crate, and I was thinking, okay, it's quite a big object for FDM printing, but possible. That was her goal. She wanted to have FDM printed. But there was no custom design to it. And I think she just wanted the joys of having a 3D printed beer crate. But it doesn't add up financially, considering that a beer crate, as it's been produced industrially out there already at the moment, is obviously way cheaper than that. If she would have had a custom design that makes it very special, then we can talk about it again. So agreeing with you, Rachel, saying that that sometimes customers really need to learn or know when it's really worth it to go with additive manufacturing or not. Or I had a customer who printed a helmet, but the helmet was basically the size of my two hands here, and he was very upset that it didn't fit his head. But in the end, the customers also give away the size of the prints that they want, for example, like the dimensions. And that is something absolutely up to them and in their hands. I cannot know if they use that helmet as a football in the end, or as a piece of design or decoration or anything. So these are some very funny examples I had in the beginning, where I was thinking, okay, there definitely needs to happen some expectation management of what it is that you can expect from 3D printing, but also from on-demand 3D printing, because you're giving away your project to someone else, right, who's printing it. But yeah, we definitely have a large range of hobbyists, and amongst these hobbyists, there are professionals and amateurs. And it's the same with the companies that order with us. They are professionals or amateurs as well. Some companies who have ordered successful 3D prints and then later on have an idea about a new design with a new material that doesn't work at all. So they cover the entire spectrum, the entire range of what is out there of knowledge, basically. And we actually also conducted a research of our business customers to prove exactly that their knowledge is from very little to very high. Everything is covered, and services like ours also tries to cater to all of these people with all of their different expectations. So I'd also say that customers still have a very high, if not higher, expectation at 3D printing in general and at services like ours. Yes.
Great. Thanks, Annika. Well, that goes great into our next question, which is, what are people 3D printing? And has there been a shift in that? Nicole, let's start with you. What things are your customers 3D printing? Anything pop to mind about anything new or interesting lately, especially?
No, I previously said, I think customers are, looking at with the HP technology. Evolve Kodak has come out with a technology, SLS, EOS, and as well as the DMLS technologies in the metal printing. People are looking at utilizing these services, these technologies for production parts, end use customization. Hearing aids are a great example of something that is 3D printed. Invisalign, those are SLA pieces. And so what are customized for individual people, but then have a mass appeal and a mass attraction for everyone. And so I think that, people are looking at, eliminating tooling costs. Why am I going to spend $300,000, where I'm not going to see my ROI for 5 years, and so how can we utilize 3D printing to ramp into this bridge production, so it's this iteration. I think that's where I was talking about the development of the materials and the technologies that are focused on engineering grade plastics, things that are repeatable, not just this month, but in 5 months from now, and a year from now, it's the same piece that you receive. So I think that's what people are looking for when you think about 3D printing and the additive space today, and where the market has been pushing for the last, 5 years or so.
Great. Rachel, what are you seeing at Proto Labs? Is it the broad spectrum? I know you purchased 3D hubs and have acquired other companies with a broad range of what they can produce. What is the movement today? Is it going towards production, or is it still prototyping? Is it a balance of the two?
Yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on there, Carolyn. I don't think Annika and Nicole would disagree here, but I would say we've always served both. But I think the COVID and the pandemic has just been a catalyst for opening up more doors and more people to just think about tapping into additive as an additional tool. An additional manufacturing tool when it comes to, issues within our supply chain, or just, I think you said it earlier, Annika, like need for speed. And so we are definitely seeing both. Like Nicole mentioned, I never know exactly what the customers are making with the parts I see, but it's fair to assume that we're seeing a lot of end use because of those end use engineering grade materials that they're able to access. Materials are just getting better and better. The whole ecosystem is just, supporting the R&D efforts towards helping production be completely achievable. And the other thing I'll add, maybe I liked what you said, Nicole, about being able to come back to someone and get the same part, 5 months from now too. I think people are starting to see the advantage of additive and the ability to do that. I would add that, in terms of production, additive is not at the level of injection molding volumes per se. I think we all know that, but we have seen some really good use cases where people are able to get high volumes in parts that there's no way they could mold the parts. So they are really taking advantage of the complexity factor in their design, and when they're thinking in mind, oh, I'm going to design this part for additive, when they kind of start in that frame of mind for their end use part, it really helps set them up for success if they have that end goal of, not hundreds of thousands of parts, but definitely a little bit lower volume that speaks to additive.
Great.
So hopefully that answered what you were thinking with that question.
Yeah, it must be interesting to get the CAD file in, maybe look at it, and really have no idea what is this for? What is this part? A prototype, it might be a little bit easier, but if someone's using it as a functional part, you may never really know what it's for. Annika, now you work with a bunch of manufacturers. Have you seen them broaden their offerings that you represent on craftcloud? More materials, more post-processing, more services?
Yes, to a certain degree, definitely. On some levels, they adjust their offers, of course, to what is popular at the moment, right? It's a business in the end. So if some materials aren't popular, then they would take them down, for example. But definitely the ones who offer more popular materials also try to become more specialized in certain other areas, materials, post-processing offerings that they bring to the table, and then we make it possible for them, just so that they can also create not necessarily monopoly, but some special side of their offerings. Because in the end, a service like ours also creates certain competition amongst the people in the market, or the players in the market. And so that's a natural development, of course. And yeah, I just wanted to quickly say you're absolutely right about when you see a part, you can't always exactly know, is this a functional prototype? Is that just a visual prototype? So it's sometimes really hard to say what it is that people are printing of more or less, but I do see that people do have more and more increasing expectations at the functionality of their prototypes. It's still a lot of prototypes that they're printing, and a lot of art pieces and design pieces are coming in. So our partners also adapt to that. They make sure that the surface quality adjusts to what it is that they believe that they're printing at the moment, and they adjust certain factors of customizing an order if possible.
Great. Well, the last question I have is a forward-looking question. What do you see this market evolving into? Will it go more towards prototyping, or actually more towards production? I mean, will all of the companies that are currently in the market, many of them do specialize, but are we going to see more of a specialization? Companies that really sort of say, no, I'm not going to do the prototypes anymore. I'm really going to focus on production. Or is it going to be a lot more acquisition going on in the market? And these are just sort of what you'd like to see, perhaps, or what your company might have plans for. Rachel, what do you think? Proto Labs has acquired companies. They're on every continent. What do you think is the ideal position for Proto Labs in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, well, I like where you were going with that. I was going to add, I think the M&A activity, you had mentioned, Proto Labs has, beginning of this year, acquired formerly 3D Hubs, now rebranded as Hubs. All of the M&A activity, I think, is just fueling our ability to help streamline workflows when it comes to additive. We're just getting better and better at efficiency and streamlining, and I think that's going to be really helpful in fueling additives growth in the future. The material advancements we touched on continue, especially these specialized materials specific to key industry sectors. I think of there's the FDM applications that aerospace companies use with these very specialized ULTIM and types of materials that they need to be successful. So I think the M&A activity coupled with the various industry segments, aerospace, automotive, you name it, are fueling a lot of where the market's headed. And additionally, I'd be remiss if we didn't touch on this, but the certifications and the regulatory bodies in charge of ensuring that we have standards in this space. I mean, there's news around that frequently too. The existing standards are just getting better. Material-specific additive standards are getting better as we learn more. And I see new standards definitely coming out to help influence where the industry is headed and what people can do with additive. So Proto Labs is just excited to be a part of that and continue serving the community as a digital manufacturer, on-demand manufacturer. So it's just where manufacturing's heading. It's very exciting.
Great, thanks. Nicole, where do you see Fathom going? They have multiple locations, multiple technologies. What would be the ideal position for them in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think it's about growth. I think that when I look at the market today and, you do talk about standards, I really like that. One of the things I look at when I think about the industry as a whole is, you see this evolution. And part of that evolution is as the patents have been falling off these technologies, you see these companies coming out with new technologies. And so, I believe that a few years ago, Stratasys came out with the SL machine as opposed to 3D Systems SLA, and so then, I think MakerBot, when the patents fell off of Stratasys FDM technology, it just threw 3D printing into everybody's awareness, where before it was just if you needed it, you knew it. If you invented things, you knew it was here for you. And then it just kind of gave this awareness. And so I look at it that as these patents fall off, new technologies, there's just going to be this new push in the marketplace. I also look at the expansion of material development. And I look at, because with my co-panelists, our companies are service providers. And so we're looking at how can we best serve the people that are coming to us, as opposed to the machine manufacturers who are looking at, they may sell each of us 100 machines, but that's only 300 machines. And so they need to sell thousands of machines in order to continue to do material development, in order to do advancements with their technologies. And I think that's where Rachel touched on the aerospace industry and these industries that need custom materials. And then how do then, as service providers, we provide access to these customized materials that were developed specifically. And so that's really what's driving the industry. So as the end consumers and those corporations buy 3D printing technology and they're pushing it in-house, then they say, well, I've hit capacity, I've gone over, I need a partner in the space. And then that's where that partnership then comes into play, and the consulting and looking at the tolerances and the post-finishing. There's the opportunities where you can then have a 3D printed geometry that's post-machine, that becomes a part of an assembly that then it could be outsourced. And so it just really is about expanding the conversation, having a vivid imagination, as you're holding someone's hand as they're coming into the marketplace. And so I think that's where it lies. You have this fast, on demand, I need parts today consumer, but then you have also this end use customer who is developing something that's going to be, customized that they need support with. So
great. Well, Nadia is back, but I just want to get Annika to talk a little bit about the customer for craftcloud. There's so many people who have their own 3D printers. They either have it at home, or businesses might have plenty of 3D printers, and the knowledge is growing. So how does that affect craftcloud? Will craftcloud always be the partner for people to get their professional parts printed?
I do believe so. I know that a lot of people have their printers at home, but they might have an FDM printer, but not an SLA printer. And we're not speaking about metal powder printing that you can't have in your bedroom. That is just a healthy hazard that I wouldn't recommend. So if you think of the Gaussian distribution curve, the regular distribution curve of everything that you can think of in the market, I believe there will be edge cases and extreme cases where you need a specific support, where you need a specific certain customizable offer of some service that will probably be more expensive, for example, and they will be very specified in certain things. And then I believe that a lot of 3D printing services out there are basically aiming for the broad range, where with standard settings you can get pretty far and you can cater to a lot of different people. So I think this is where the market is basically heading to. I do believe that there will be some synergies in the future, so that you can offer not only additive but also subtractive manufacturing. So all the other manufacturing methods that were out there before additive, that also have their benefits, right? But in other use cases and with other designs, so that in the end a customer can have a one-stop solution and say, I need this one time now and 20,000 times later. And depending on the design, you can find the best solution for our customer. So I think that these production platforms, as they most likely will be the ones covering the broader range of of this distribution curve, that is what I expect to see. But I'm going to respect everyone's time and stop now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We could talk about this all day. This could go on. But Nadia, do we have time for any questions from the
Well,
audience?
actually, we ran out of time. We're already
no.
5 minutes past the schedule. But I invite everybody. I see we had a lot of questions in, but it's also time for networking now. So we can still have time, since there are no presentation after this. We have still 5 extra minutes if you want to go through the questions, Caroline. Some of the questions.
Yeah, we can do a few, and then All 3DP does have a networking table. You can catch us there. We can sit there and answer your questions. One of the questions about global partners so that production can be made locally. I know craftcloud has global partners. Obviously, Proto Labs and 3D Hubs and all of their acquisitions lately, they have partners. Nicole, with Fathom, are they global or is it focused in the US?
We do have facilities in Asia, and thinking about local, we do have 12 facilities here in the United States, and so we do have that focus on local support.
Great. Yeah, the one of the things about additive is that you can have things made locally. It's about not having to ship things. So I know that's a big focus at Proto Labs as well. Another question. Many parts providers sell a variety of technologies but outsource it as they don't have the technology in-house. What are the elements that drive the business case to bring it in-house? Anybody want to tackle that one? If someone says, well, maybe I'll do a part with you, but then I'll set up my own 3D printing lab. What do your customers say about not having it in-house and outsourcing it? Rachel?
I have some examples.
Oh,
No, Rachel.
Go ahead, Annika. You're probably better set up for this one.
I'm very sorry. I just thought that Caroline asked for someone to tackle this question. Sorry about that. We do have a couple of customers actually approaching us that they do have their own printers at home, so they do not necessarily need to give it to a third party and do on-demand printing, but they do outsource their work because they need a quicker solution for their project. They also sometimes have a printer that's probably not fitting the requirements, or they want to test out our service or a certain services. So there are different reasons why these customers would outsource their job, but mainly it's because they need a quicker turnaround and they expect for an online 3D printing service or for on-demand 3D printing service to have all the capacities in the world and to deliver within 1 minute. So that is what they're hoping for, and that is what they most of the time are going for.
yeah. Anyone else want to jump in about whether you partner and you also work with companies that have their own 3D printing labs? Maybe you do extra work for them or different type of work. It's not just people who don't have their own 3D printers, right?
Yeah, I want to jump in. We actually have a division at Fathom that helps support companies that do have labs, and they need that staff to run the labs. And it's something that when you need an expertise and you see that there's a gap, then that's why you would come to Fathom to help support that staffing need. And I think that when people look at partnering, I think that they've either lost the expertise because someone's left, or they need to have that knowledge with uninterruption. So you can come in and you can buy a new technology, for instance, and you can train 3 people, and let's say someone leaves and the other people are out sick, but you still have to run this technology. What then do you do? And so I think there's that case that people then look to outsource, and they look to how do they get a partner to come support the technology, or they don't have any room. I know that a lot of these facilities are out of space, and they say, we have this demand, we have a printer on site, and then we need more capability than that. And so that's where you see that true partnership is born.
Great. Anything to add, Rachel?
My colleagues well covered that one. Thank you.
Great, great. There's one question just for craftcloud, but I'd invite you to come to the All3DP table and we can answer that one. I want to thank Rachel and Nicole and Annika so much for lending your expertise. This has been a great panel. Hopefully we can do it again sometime.
Exciting.
Thank you very much as well.
Thank you.